we got the start of a brand new update coming to Minecraft. Hello there, Ray here, and I got my Christmas attire on. And besides getting the new armadillos, we also got a bunch of other changes which will come out in the next full release version 1.20.5. This is snapshot 23W51B. There was an A snapshot, but that had some crashes, so they came out with a second version called B. So let's take a look at all of those and make sure you subscribe, and let's get started. The 1.21 armadillos can be found here in the savanna biome, and they roll up in a ball when they are scared, such as when the player sprinting within 8 blocks of them, or if there's an undead mob within 8 blocks of them. They will also roll up in a ball as soon as the player mounts something like a horse, or a minecart, or even a boat. And if the sprinting stops or the hostile mob is gone, they'll unroll after 3 seconds. And the armadillo rolling up and unrolling is actually detected by the skulk sensors. As you can see, once it unrolls, there's a frequency that goes over to it. Because of this, you can detect when a hostile mob walks away, or something that's mounted like a player in a minecart or horse leaves the area, which could be used like in minigames, but the actual hitbox of the mob doesn't change when it rolls versus when it's standing up normally. And that's why we can't detect it using stuff like string and tripwire. They will also never roll up if they're actually trying to flee, such as this one getting hurt, or if they're in water, or if they are on a lead, or if they happen to be in the air. Now, while they're in a ball, they won't be tempted or eat or walk around. You can also breed the armadillos by using the item spider eyes, and this will put them in a love mode, and they will produce a baby armadillo, which I have to say is one of the cutest things in the game. You can also use the spider eyes to feed up the baby armadillo until it turns into an adult. But it does look like it's missing the growing particles like we see in other mobs when they're growing up, which is usually the little green particles. There it goes. Now, killing one with a high level of looting will only give you XPs and no item. Periodically, they will drop parts of their shell, which are called armadillo scutes. And not to be confused with the turtle ones, they renamed these to turtle scute. Now you can also get the scutes off of the armadillos more forcefully by using a brush on them. This will drop 1 scute. The thing is, you could actually just repeatedly keep getting scutes out the same exact armadillo. But it does come at a cost, because every time you use a brush on it, it uses durability, and a huge chunk of it too, being 16 durability points. So unlike Bedrock Edition, where you can actually get 5 uses out of the brush before it breaks, in Java Edition, on the 4th use, it will break. We can also use dispensers with the brushes on the armadillo, so if we brush them, you can see it drops a scute, and it also does the same amount of durability as if you were doing it. So you can make a farm just by having a hopper underneath the armadillo and automatically using brushes on them with dispensers to collect all the scutes you ever need. But in order to make this infinitely automatic, you need to have a crafter that's crafting up brushes, which takes a feather farm, copper farm, and stick farm. And I have this great spreadsheet which lets you see exactly how you can farm up each of these, as well as how you can farm up almost every single item in the game of Minecraft. I always have that linked down in the description if you guys ever get bored in your world and want to find a fun challenge, especially with the new crafters coming out. You could definitely get prepared by building all the farms. But once you get all those scutes, what are you going to do with them? Well, there's currently only one recipe we can use them for. By making H shape like this, we can make wolf armor. And as suggested, if you have a tamed wolf, you can actually right click it with the dog armor, and then it'll be wearing it, which looks amazing. It has a bunch of armor pieces all over and even on the knees. And the wolf armor protects them as much as the diamond horse armor protects the horses. And since diamond is considered one of the top tiers, there's probably not going to be any tiers when it comes to the wolf armor. What do you think the armadillo scutes should also be used for? And just like horse armor, you can't put enchantments with enchanting table or put books onto it. Keep in mind, if you're in creative, you're actually able to enchant anything, including even normal objects you can enchant. So make sure to do the testing in survival, but you can also not use it with smithy tables, so you can't put trim on it, or even dye it like leather horse armor. Now, some of these I wish they would add, it would be kind of cool to give it some type of enchantments. Of course, coloring it would be really cool, just like you could color the dog's collar. And it's interesting that the entire armadillo scutes are completely different than we see with the more metal-based armors that we have with the player as well as with the horses. Do you think the dog armor deserves enchantments as well as being dyed or even trimmed? The armor will protect the dog just as if the player had full gold armor without any enchantments. We also can't place the dog armor onto baby tamed wolves or wild wolves. But when it comes to other people's dogs, so let's summon in a wolf that's tamed by someone else. You can see it automatically sits down since they're not online. I won't be able to place wolf armor onto this dog. just like you can't color other people's dogs' collars. This way you don't like grief their dogs since they're not yours. And for this reason, they don't have it so you can automatically dispense armor onto dogs, because that could just be another way of griefing them. Now once there is armor on them, you can remove it by using a shears, and this will drop it as an item, and it'll do 1 durability to the shears. And for the reason they don't want you to grief the dogs, they also prevent you from using shears automatically with the dispenser to remove armor. Now your dogs normally have 20 health, so 20 hits would normally kill them. So let's see how many hits it takes to kill the ones with armor. 35 hits, just like we've seen in the Bedrock edition. But as I mentioned there, when it comes to heavier hits in a single hit, overall it won't be able to take as much damage compared to smaller hits. When it dies, it will also drop the armor. I really hope they come out with more uses for the armadillo scutes, as wolf armor is probably more early game, maybe a little bit mid game, when people actually have wolves that are helping them like fight stuff as they're going out on adventures. But at some point, the wolves just die way too easily, and it's not really worth even taking them out, especially if you have Elytra and they're just constantly getting left behind. And as I mentioned before, the wolf armor isn't very good compared to the other 2 options we had, which were the crab claw and the penguin boats. Penguins near boats would let them travel faster, kind of like dolphins let you swim faster, and crab claws would let the player be able to reach farther, which would be really useful in survival. But if you want to code it, you can actually change how far your player can reach. This was also added in the snapshot, so there's something called Minecraft Generic Block Interaction Range. This is under the data for each player or entity. So normally it's a reach of 4.5 meters. There's also one called Entity Interaction Range, so how far you can hit entities, and that's 3 blocks. But if you change these, then you can actually break blocks from really super far away. So you could make your very own crab claw. They also added one called Generic Scale, where you can actually scale up any living entity so you can make massively huge mobs. There's also an attribution called Generic Step Height, where you can change it so you can decide how high something will be able to walk up. So we'll be able to automatically walk up like half a block, or a full block, or even like 2 blocks at a time. And if you make it really high, you could pretty much just have like teleporting skills when it comes to buildings, as you could just end up at the very top of them instantly. Now they did remove one tag when it comes to mobs. This is a tag called Factor Calculation Data, which had to do with their effect instant tags. Now when it comes to the type of damage Llama Spit does, it will now be considered a mob projectile. So when using the damage command, it'll act similar to like a skeleton arrow. Now they changed it so that Llama Spit will no longer break armor stands, instead of go right through it. And shulker bullets will no longer break armor stands. As you can see, they just break on them. Now shulkers breaking armor stands was a bug that was accidentally introduced when they made it so that withers could break armor stands. So you can once again hide behind armor stands to protect yourselves from bullets. The breeze also got some changes. Firstly, it got a new whirling sound when it's sitting idle. It also has a charge attack sound now, and it plays noises when it also does its jump. Now if you would happen to deflect its bullets, there's a special noise for that too. Besides that, they also went ahead and tweaked all the existing sounds that they produce. Now if you just to pick block a trial spawner and place it down, then you could place like any type of mob you want to inside of it. And if you would complete the trial spawner by killing everything it spawns out, it will now give loot just as if it was a trial spawner that was placed in by the game. You'll no longer get the wax off advancement just for opening up a copper wax door while holding a axe, as the door itself didn't actually have its wax removed. When searching for hashtag doors, the copper variants of doors and trapdoors weren't showing up here, so they're added in the newest snapshot. The partly oxidized bulbs that are here in the trial chambers here were actually not waxed by default, so going forward they will be. The bulbs have the iconic car blinker noise when turned on as well as off. But there was actually an unused noise that they also have. Listen to this. So now that noise will be used when turning them off. Breeze will no longer have this problem here where they're producing the particles of the copper block way down here rather than the mud block which they're actually on top of. You can no longer stop the breeze from constantly attacking or jumping or firing wind charges just by constantly hitting it. So you won't be able to use that trick anymore. Sometimes when the breeze does a jump, it'll then not have any friction and it will try to pathfind around, but instead it will just slide around really fast and it can actually get extremely far before it will then resume some other attack style. But this weird frictionless breeze problem is now resolved. The eyes and eyebrows of the breeze were a little bit odd, and some blocks would actually render through them, like this honey block here, which has now been resolved. They also made it so that their shadow is smaller, like most other mobs. When it comes to having armor that has negative durability, you can see the durability bar was all glitched out with a big red line going to the right. And depending on how negative it was, you can have this bar reach all the way off the screen as well. So this was fixed in today's snapshot. And they fixed a creative only bug when testing to see what type of durability is on armor. The game would actually switch it out with a different type. For some reason, ever since 1.18, helmets weren't actually protecting the player like they were supposed to when an anvil would fall on them or a stalactite. So remember to wear your helmets once again if your friends are those people that like to drop anvils on you. They resolved a weird bug when it comes to maps and renaming them. If there's 2 copies and one was renamed and then you would throw it down, you can actually make it so that the player where they show up on the map can vanish and appear, depending on if you're holding the map or not. If you're in spectator mode, you'll no longer be able to see these disable button clicks as they aren't meant for spectator players. Respawn anchors now have an ambient noise which plays. This is what it sounds like. They also fixed a few bugs related to subtitles. They also resolved 3 different bugs related to how the particles appear when bone milling. They also fixed a whole bunch of different bugs related to what should render in front of what, so it should be easier to see certain text when it pops up on the screen. The F3 menu had some spaces added as well as removed. They also fixed it so that when you're in F1 mode, you can actually still open up the chat. Otherwise, if you try to open up the chat when in F1, it would just appear as if you wrote nothing at all. Macro commands also had their permissions fixed, so you can't do stuff unless you have the correct one. Now this snapshot did come out on a Monday rather than the typical Wednesday. That's because Mojang's probably starting their Christmas vacation and they don't want to release the update on Wednesday where there might not be anybody there, so they won't be able to fix problems such as having like the world crash, like what was happening with this snapshot and why we actually got the B version. This will also probably be the last snapshot that we see until next year, as their holiday often goes into the first week of January. Now see all the other crazy farms and machines I designed for 1.21 and even a way to farm up every item in the game all automatically. Thanks to this month's channel supporters, and I hope you guys all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's. Bye bye!